Esports is filled with defining moments. These are the moments that have somehow jumped in front of your screens even if you're not a fan of a particular title, or maybe they've become terminology that you're using and you don't even know why. Moments like these happen in nearly every title. There's obviously like League of Legends with the things like Expecke's backdoor, as well as the infamous Faker and Ryu Z mirror that everyone heard. Look at the clones, look at the moves. There's CSGO with Simple falling from heaven and making CSGO go viral for, a couple of years. There's Dota with the Dandy hook that took over Dota for ages, everyone trying to recreate it. But those plays don't stop there. There's things like Smash Bros that brought out one of the most used terms in MOBA and hero shooter terminology today. And obviously, I can't really create this intro without bringing up the infamous C9 moment from Overwatch.
But they're gonna lose everyone in the process, and it's gonna go right. Wait,
no, they got it.
What?
They don't cut them out. They got it.
What?
What?
Just you've seen these things if you're a fan of nearly any esport. They'll just pop up through your algorithm, whether it's YouTube or Twitch, or everyone's talking about it at school or work if you're, close friends. But if you're a fan of a specific title, you might remember the more dominant reigns within those esports specifically. The top three that I can think of, like off the top of my head, there's NIP with the 87-0 map win streak from 2012. There's obviously SKT's reign from 2015 to 2017, where Faker became the unkillable Demon King. And there's Armada's reign in Smash. I hated Armada. I used to watch Smash just so people would upset Armada and I could feel like the dopamine of him losing. But he never did. But it kind of made me want to watch more Smash Bros. Now, Marvel Rivals is obviously new, and even though it's just hit 500,000 players, scratch that. Just this morning, Marvel Rivals just hit 600,000 playing right now, like concurrently. That's nuts. I don't think it's had its definitive moment yet, and it's obviously way too young to have someone claim the crown to be the uncontested, king of the game. But we might have a team who are taking their first steps towards the throne. Team Cats are a Rivals team from Europe, which consists of these players that are on your screen right now. Shocker. I'll throw their socials up so you guys can follow them. I think some of them stream, some of them might make content, I'm unsure, but these guys have a background with a bunch of different teams and organizations. Some that you may recognize include Twisted Minds, Spitfire, Paris Eternal, Space Station Gaming, Cloud9, SK, Toronto Defiant, and I'm pretty sure there's probably more. I don't want to discredit their past, but I don't really want to spend an hour researching everybody either. So I'm a big firm believer of hopefully high-end teams really thinking with purpose and nothing really happening by accident. So I'm going to presume that their perfect decision making starts on this first portal, taking the low ground. Now, most people will have noticed a trend in Marvel Rivals, and honestly hero shooters in general, that typically taking the low ground is the quote-unquote wrong choice. If you've watched a lot of Marvel Rivals, you've played a lot of Marvel Rivals, or you've watched a lot of VODs and reviewed like I have, you'll notice that on Royal Palace, most teams will just double teleport to the high ground and then kind of have a team fight, and you kind of win the point by gentleman's agreement of who wins this team fight first. Now that's fine in ranked, but in competitive, this has always kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I really didn't understand why most teams would be vying for high ground if your comp didn't necessarily need it. Let's talk about Team Cats and their approach to Royal Palace is the best team in the world right now. One thing I want to bring your attention to is the Wolverine secure by the blue team. Now, while this wasn't picked, it's the only information that Team Cats have in regards to the enemy team's team composition for the first point and the first initial pre-engagement phase of the game. So the first thing we can talk about is the respect of the enemy's potential secure. If they pick Wolverine, like they kind of alluded to in draft, high ground's not the best place to fight him. It's really easy to engage, it's really easy to kidnap a tank, and there's a lot of natural cover, which I'll talk about more, in the top half of the game. If you take the over-analysis of Wolverine out of the picture, and you just focus on two things, it kind of simplifies it way better than thinking about like Wolverine and counterpicks and things like that. The two things that I'm talking about are what the team comp of Team Cats wants to do, and then the second thing is the geography of the map itself on Royal Palace. So we take a look at the Luna Snow's positioning. She has a really safe line of sight towards her front line, which she's able to heal really easily, and then the enemy don't have any real good line of sight towards Luna. Now, a really nitpicky thing that you can maybe talk about here is that if Luna wanted to return fire to the enemy front line that is shooting her from high ground, she has a right-hand peek. Now, nearly everybody in the Marvel Rivals community have made a video about if you shoot to the right hand side of somebody, it seems that the hitbox registers a lot better. If we take a look at the high ground's point of view, we can see that there's actually most of the time you can't throw any line of fire to the Luna or to the Hela. And if you do, they have the easy accessible path to just dip back out, have natural cover, cover them. Another factor that Team Cats have in their great success on this first point is the Psylocke player Spark playing on the bottom left balcony like natural cover. What this does, obviously he can't be hit by people sitting on the high ground above him because the ground covers him. And it also deters the Magneto and Strange on the enemy team of walking down onto point because their backs have to be exposed one way or another, either turning to hit Spark or walking past Spark, letting Spark hit them in the back. Another thing to note with Spark's positioning is if he needs to help the supports, he's able to. That is also really helpful where they're positioned, obviously the things that we touched on before, but also we'll see that Psylocke has a pretty ease of access to get back to this really dominant position. He dashes to his supports, which is fine for a little bit of peel, but then with one dash, he's back to this kind of like a cubby area where the DPS can't access him and he can access the enemy tanks. Super safe position for a Psylocke player. The positioning of Team Cats kind of forced the blue team into a really random position where they had to try to force onto the point even though it wasn't stalemated. So Team Cat kind of stole away the first capture point in a way just from positioning itself. So the team fight starts with two Lunar Snow ults going off. It's a disco. We see both of the Psylocks take out both of the Hellas, funnily enough. And then it kind of gets clutched up by Nevix's massive Eye of Agamotto ult, which secures the team fight win. And it also secures like 50% onto the point, winning that fight. Now that the blue team have respawned, we see that they have quite a significant ult advantage. Team Cats only have a Magneto ult, and the most impactful ult that we're probably going to highlight on the blue team is that Psylocke ult is available. Now, how does the fight start? It's a pretty easy Psylocke ult onto the Hela. After the Hela falls, it's stock standard cleanup, to be honest. Magneto ults for both sides weren't really too relevant. I think the outcome would not have changed if both of the Magnetos did not ult, but nevertheless, it has no real impact on the fight. And we notice that blue team actually takes it back off of Team Cats. Now we're in an interesting position. We have Team Cats vying to contest the high ground, so Nevix kind of inevitably pushes forward, uses Magneto bubble, and this is what makes me think that this is a bait to try to raw Snaze in for this Agamotto ult. He gets counter-ulted with Lunar Snow, which is fine. Then what really seals the deal and makes me think it's a bait is that they actually Mantis stun him after he Agamottos rather than before cancelling it. They chase out the enemy Psylocke, who's also been baited by the Doctor Strange ult, and then Lunar Snow ult for the blue team's completely wasted while Mantis is stuck behind natural cover, one of the biggest topics of this video, because Hela is actually ulting her from the sky. As the blue team, this is one of the most disheartening feelings ever, where you really think you're about to hit a big ult and you get completely wasted, and not only do you get wasted yourself as Doctor Strange, you actually bait your team into engaging pretty hard and losing off the back of all your ult economy, whilst the other team only used like one ult. Incredibly disheartening feeling for blue team there, but really, really well played by Team Cats. You gotta give it to them. The last team fight for Royal Palace sees that the map goes into overtime, as most control points do. Now, overtime is something that does make this scenario quite interesting, because in overtime, playing your normal optimal route is probably the wrong thing to do. You can see that here with Etsu's ult, where he takes down Team Cat's backline. In a normal circumstance, it's an awesome ultimate. It's great. But what he's actually done is taken himself away from the point in overtime that he needs to touch, as well as like let the front line from Team Cat kind of live unbothered. Whereas if you look at Spark's ultimate, same character, same situation. He just ults both tanks to try to make it uncomfortable. We have to disregard the Mantis kind of inting with ult up, but it is what it is. I think it's a good side-by-side comparison to show that an optimal ult, in theory, versus like a sub-optimal ult, can be completely game-changing when it does come to things like overtime. Nobody really wants to ult double tanks to Psylocke. Everyone wants to ult double supports. But sometimes you just have to bite the bullet, and biting the bullet is what makes you the best team versus one of the best teams. There's a massive difference. That was Team Cat dominating the Royal Palace in the Marvel Rival Championships Grand Final. Now that was only map 1.1 of the series. If you want to see other points, feel free to let me know, but I feel like now that Season 1 has started, Season 0 might be irrelevant. Make sure that you leave a like, subscribe if you like the content. To be honest, I wasn't going to continue YouTube going into the next year because I was a Smite 2 kind of guy, but Marvel Rivals has kind of popped off, and your comments, your support gives me a bit more motivation than Smite 2 does at the moment. If you need to follow me on socials, I'll link it down in the description. Make sure you follow my editor also. His info will be down in the description too. Make sure you show him some love, and I'll see you next week for the next video.